arguably one of the most formidable challenges in trying to conduct research is how to formulate that research question. Hi, I'm Dr. Sri Banerjee, epidemiologist, biostatistician, faculty member. And in this video, I'm going to be going over this scholarly article. And usually I have slides or I have a brief kind of description of the video, but in this situation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go full on going through the contents of this paper. So let's go ahead and get started. This was published in the Journal of Indian Association of Pediatric Surgeons, and it's entitled Formulation of Research Question, Stepwise Approach. So I wanted to bring your attention to, first of all, an acronym are expressed by the acronym FINER maps, and I'm going to go over what FINER maps actually represents. But the broader question is, the broader aim of this study is that if you want to have good research which unravels the mysteries of nature, then you really need to have a good backbone for conducting that research. And so the aim of this article and this presentation is to kind of give you those strategies on how to formulate research questions, then which you can use and conduct subsequent research as well. So if we're looking at some of the steps that are needed, if you're thinking about a good research question, undoubtedly the authors say the first critical step in the research process, especially in the field of social and health research, is the systematic generation of knowledge. And this knowledge, the aim is to promote, restore, maintain, and or protect health of individuals and populations. So while there's some research that can be action-oriented, that you can immediately apply to policy, the reality is there's a lot of research, basic sciences research, clinical research, empirical research that take time for us to actually see results in the general public. So empirical, administrative, theoretical, qualitative, quantitative research are all appropriate, just depends on context and purpose. So then the question may arise for you is that you just got done telling me, you might be asking me, that you just got done telling me that these are exactly what is a part of research questions, and this is kind of a technique that you can use to narrow this down. But what is a good research question? How do I know once I've formulated a research question that it actually is good? Well, here's some tips on trying to determine if you do indeed have a successful, good research question and research topic. Narrowly focused. I mean, I think that would be considered a no-brainer because, I mean, you don't want unfocused research topic, which, because of the nature of the lack of focus, it then results in a final finished product which is also lacking focus. So you don't want that. So a good research question is an asset as it details the problem statement. I've lectured about the problem statement and the difficulties sometimes that really arise when trying to even formulate that one statement, because you're trying to cohesively include a lot of different components of research in that statement. And then also a good research question should further describe and refine the issue under study. So it's not just good enough to be talking about diabetes and how the connection between diabetes there is and cardiovascular disease. That's been well established. I mean, it's some area that may need attention, but you might need attention about diabetes and cardiovascular disease within the rural areas of Mississippi. You already know, so I'm going to create context. As a geospatial expert, I already know that the southern belt has higher preponderance of diabetes. And so, what I'm trying to figure out is where in the southern belt are more increases in diabetes, and if there in fact is a stronger relationship between the two variables in certain areas. So, see what I did there. What I did is I described the problem a little bit more. I gave you some geospatial context. And then I used that information, that additional information, to refine the issue that I was trying to study. So, another good research question would add focus to the problem statement, guide data collection and analysis. I mean, if I look at a research question, and I evaluate research questions almost daily, this is part of my job at a programmatic level at my university. So when I'm looking at a research question, there are a couple things that I'm looking for. And in this research question, I want to make sure that the variables, if it's in a quantitative context, are explicitly stated. And not only that, the relationships do make sense. And if there's something missing, maybe there's a part of a variable that's not quite clearly operationalized, then I'll go ahead and provide the comment and provide an additional reference, sometimes create a video to kind of articulate and better hone and fine tune the understanding of the definition of the variable. And the reason I go through these extra steps is because I know that as a burgeoning student, a student that is just acquiring some of these concepts, the only way that they would know is if they have another seasoned mentor that is providing them with the guidance, with the additional support to tailor and to target these research questions so that they're actually asking the right questions. They're asking questions that address and that get to the level of the community, and that it's not just broad questions. These types of targeted, tailored questions within communities, whether we're using a geospatial context or another framework, is the only way that we can ensure not only for current success but future sustainable development and sustainable growth from the devastation that has been left behind from the pandemic. So, a good research question, of course, will set context for research. Another acronym that is somewhat interesting and you might want to explore is finger maps, or is FINER maps. And that stands for feasible, interesting, novel, ethical, relevant, manageable, appropriate, potential, value, and publishability, and systematic. So it's similar principles, but it's using different terminology. And so this part I encourage you to kind of go over on your own. You want to have feasible questions. You want to have interesting questions. Of course, novel. You don't want it to be asked in the past and already determined. Ethics is always important. IRB approval, relevance, manageable, appropriate, and of course, publishability and systematic. So one other thing that I wanted to leave you behind is, um, I'm just going to quickly say, there's multiple types. There's descriptive types, there's relationship types, there's composition types, there's description and classification types, there's existence types. There's quite a few different types of questions. Now, when you're asking dissertation style research questions, they actually have to fit the mold of certain types, certain formats. But um, I think it's interesting to kind of go through the examples of how that is done. And that's all I'll say for this portion of research question um, development. Now, for the final part, how to develop a research question. Well, these are extremely important. Begin by identifying a broader subject of interest that lends itself to investigate. For example, hormone levels among hypospadias. If you have um, your sex organs potentially not expressed as they should be, then that will cause a deficiency in the sex hormone. Do preliminary research on the general topic to find out what research has already been done and what literature already exists. Therefore, one should begin with information gaps. What do you already know about the problem? What, for example, studies with results on testosterone levels among hypospadias? What do you still need to know? What are the implied questions? The need to know about a problem will lead to few implied questions. Each general question should lead to more specific questions, and then narrow the scope and focus of research. Once question has been framed, one should evaluate it. So how effective the research questions are, or if they need more revising. I mean, is the research question clear? Is it specific? Is it focused? Is it complex? They shouldn't be yes or no. They really should be. They should instead require both research and analysis on the part of the writer. Now, that rule is not really a hard and fast rule because I do know quantitative analysis sort of research questions which do bode well when you ask yes no questions because they're actually a more important test for significance. So the yes or no is not really a yes or no for answering a simple question, but there's actually a lot of analytic techniques and a lot of effort and math that has gone into in order to answer that question. You want to know if the research question is researchable. Is it feasible? Is the methodology feasible? Is the research question measurable, and will the process produce data that can be supported or contradicted? Is the research question too broad or too narrow? So you want to create research questions to think about, how this will be progressing, and just start writing these questions down. So this is a rather drawn out paper and has quite a bit of information regarding the importance of research questions and how best to formulate them. So I encourage you to go through this article and take a look at what you can use. I'll tell you this from a lot of experience and mentoring a lot of papers and conducting a lot of primary research that this is not something that is done overnight, but I think with understanding some of the ways that this can become systematic, if you understand the systematization of conducting research, and if you can prioritize things, then you can capture the excitement of doing something new But then at the same time, you can kind of learn a lot from the experience alone because you get to find out things about topic areas and subjects that you had no idea about. Sometimes when you're researching about one area, actually many times I find this, then that goes off into other tangents, and I start writing down notes and in journals to show. I have an extensive notebook, actually electronic notebook, where I have ideas for other research topics, which then allow me to have multiple publications simultaneously. So these are all just little tips and pointers that I'm providing you, in addition to providing with the details of this wonderful article that's been written on how to formulate a research question. So if you have any additional questions or anything, you should go ahead and visit this article, and you can even contact the authors. Thank you for listening.